Hello, everyone. Welcome into another edition of the Behind the Rails of Purdue Football podcast. I'm your host, Brice Vance. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast or watching it on the Believe Network. You can subscribe to this show on YouTube. You can also follow it on Apple or Spotify podcast apps. So make sure you are doing that because we have a lot of listeners, followers, watchers, viewers that are not subscribed. And you want to be subscribed because it doesn't cost you anything. First of all, it's free. It only helps me and you and anybody else that wants to listen to this show. So, if you are watching, especially on YouTube, make sure you are subscribed. We have hundreds of viewers each week that are not subscribed to the channel, and you're going to want to be subscribed, especially this week, because we're doing a live recap show on this very YouTube channel of the Purdue Wisconsin game. As soon as that game ends, as soon as the final horn sounds, we are going live on YouTube, youtube.com/behind the rails. And I'll solicit your feedback, your questions, your comments. We'll put them up on the screen, and I'll give my thoughts on them if I have an opinion or can answer your question. So make sure you are doing that. Make sure you're tuned in Friday if you would like. You don't have to, but if you'd like to watch the show live, we might do it more if we get a good amount of feedback or a good chunk of you guys watching on Friday night. We may continue to do that, and if it goes swimmingly, as I think we can make it, then we might do more of them outside of just recap shows. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you are getting that notification bell because if you click that notification bell, as soon as we go live, you'll get a notification and you'll just be one click away from watching us live and recapping Friday night's game. So, with all that out of the way now, let's dive deep into this game and a couple other things that we want to get to here on this edition of Behind the Rails. So, Wisconsin is a 6-point favorite at Purdue. Friday night, FS1, 7 o'clock is when this game kicks off. The betting line opened at -4, -4, and it had jumped all the way up within less than 24 hours to Wisconsin being favored by a touchdown. And that tells me that people think that Purdue is going to lose by roughly a touchdown in this game, and the bettors just trying to move that line up to get people to bet the other way. And I can see why, because Purdue hasn't beat Wisconsin in 20 years. Last time was in 2003. Wisconsin has won 16 straight matchups. But I think this is a year outside of last year that they, probably should have beat them or had one of their better chances to a more down Wisconsin team to pick up a win and end that streak. I still think this is a good year to get Wisconsin if you're going to get them, and especially get them at this point of the season, being your first conference game, being that Wisconsin hasn't looked all that impressive in with their new offense. Their defense, especially in their secondary, has been a little leaky, more than just a little in certain regards. They're similar, I think, in a lot of ways to Purdue with their defense and how their secondary has struggled mightily here in these first 3 weeks. So I think this is a decent matchup when you are at least comparing the defenses. Both these defenses are, not stout in any one area. I think both defenses are pretty good in the running aspect or the running defense, notwithstanding with Purdue's performance against Garrett Schrader last week, but they slowed down LaQuint Allen, and they've been doing a pretty good job of slowing down running backs, which Wisconsin is going to try to feature a lot in this offense. So I think with this game, it comes down to which offense can move the ball with some consistency. Now, Wisconsin against Georgia Southern last week was given ample opportunity to go downfield and score because Wisconsin turned Georgia Southern over 6 times last week. 6. And I think they might have finished off one of those drives maybe once or twice with points on the board. So they really didn't do a whole lot with them. But Georgia Southern was able to move the ball on this Wisconsin defense through for almost 400 yards and a lot of bigger pass plays. So if Purdue can finally get its offense to a place where I think where it wants to be, where it is, throwing the ball and having those big explosive plays, this could be an opportunity for that. But I think that would only happen if we're in week 7 or 8, because nowhere have I seen this offense be that consistent with explosive pass plays. They've had about 1 to 2 per game that go for 20 plus yards, but I don't think we're at a point with this offense to where they're rattling off big explosive plays and moving down the field rather quickly. It's taking Purdue, you know, uh, a short gain here, a short pass here, getting stuffed on 3rd and 1 here, trying again on 4th and 1, running to the left side or in the middle of the tackles. And I think this offense has shown you what it wants to be, but is not there yet. I think we're still a few weeks away, maybe another couple of weeks away, maybe by the time the bye week rolls around. And after that, you start to get where this offense really wants to be. And who knows? Maybe with some of the defenses that you're going to face this year, you never get there. And I think they have the talent to be there. I think you have a trio of receivers that are either reliable, explosive, or a combination of the two. And you have a good, couple of tight ends. You have a good couple of running backs that you have ignored quite a bit in certain aspects. And I think you have a quarterback that is capable. But I think it's coming down to the play calling, the decision making, the execution that is the biggest hindrance of this team, or the turnovers, as they were last week. Because, like Ryan Walters said in his press conference on Monday, Purdue moved the ball. It's just when they got into Syracuse territory, they either scored or they turned it over. And most of the time on Saturday, they turned it over. Now, I think this is a team in Wisconsin's defense that you can move the ball on with their secondary. Were a lot of wide open passes, a lot of green area for Georgia Southern to move the ball in. I think they almost had 400 yards of passing, but their quarterback forced some of those throws, and they ended up being turnovers. Out of the 5 interceptions that Georgia Southern's quarterback threw, I think 2 of them were not fully on him to blame, because he got hit on one and another one of those was tipped. 3 of them were just complete overthrows and right into a Wisconsin defensive back, including Hunter Wohler, who I think is the X factor for Wisconsin this week. Leads the team in tackles, has a couple of interceptions in that Georgia Southern game. So he's going to be the one that Purdue keys on a lot when they have the ball this week. Now, does Purdue try to establish more of a running game? We'll see. I haven't seen any inkling of it early on in a game that this is what we're going to try to do. They might, run the ball on first down on their very first offensive play, but that's no sign of, hey, we're going to try to establish the run here. There's been very little times where they've consistently tried to run the ball, um, and a lot of it was against Virginia Tech, and that was a defense where you could run the ball on. Syracuse's defense was not, and I don't know if Wisconsin's really is either. I think their front seven is probably better than what the back end of their defense has at the moment. We'll see how this defense evolves under Luke Fickell over the next couple of years. They might become really good in the back end because that's what Luke Fickell has kind of had. That's what he had at Cincinnati with the guys of like Sauce Gardner, who probably one of the best defensive backs in the NFL right now. So I think they're gonna probably get there at some point. But right now, I think the strength of this Wisconsin defense is up front. Now, that doesn't mean they get after the quarterback a ton because I didn't see them get after Georgia Southern's quarterback a lot, Cam Ward, Washington State's quarterback a couple weeks ago a lot. So, and I think with this Purdue offensive line, they've held up fine in pass protection. I think Hudson Card's only been sacked 4 times so far this year, and credit to him, he's been able to move out of the pocket when he has been able to feel some pressure. So I think it's a combination of those two things kind of working. The offensive line has been holding up long enough, and Hudson Card has been able to move with his legs outside of the pocket or escape some pressure if he needs to. So I think there is going to be opportunity for Purdue to move the ball. It's just on, can they finish drives? Can they get into the red zone and not kick field goals and score touchdowns? When they get inside the 5, can they be more creative than handoff or read option or anything else than what they've been doing outside of the one play action play to Deion Burks last week when they scored the touchdown inside the 5? That was the one time where I was like, I think I even tweeted it out, good play call, good execution. Because that's what it was. Other than that, the play call has been run the ball, try to run on the left side, and you're getting no push. So you're not executing the play at all. You're getting stuffed. There was multiple times where I think it was Musa who tried to cut block or was maybe just not getting the push that he needed to. And maybe Syracuse was sending more than what Purdue had. And it's just, it hasn't been working. And we've been over this number of times already. So I don't want to belabor the point or rehash the rant over and over again. But this is an opportunity for Purdue, I think, to move the ball. They haven't been very stout so far defensively. Wisconsin has. They've allowed teams to move the ball. This is the second worst pass defense in the Big Ten, only ahead of Purdue. So, but whether or not they're still on a hot streak as far as turnovers, forcing 6 last week after not forcing any in the first 2 weeks. So I don't necessarily think they're going to force 6 turnovers again this week. I think, at least in the passing game, Hudson Card has been, I think, accurate, on time, hasn't really forced a whole lot of throws in tight windows. When he did last week to Deion Burks, there was 3 guys around. You could say it was triple coverage. Ball hit off his hands and it was easily intercepted. But other than that, he really hasn't forced a ton of throws into tight windows that are interceptable. So I think he's been good in that aspect. And Ryan Walters said that was the most comfortable he's been in this offense so far. And you have to remember, it's new system, new quarterback, new coordinator, all trying to get comfortable. And we're only 3 weeks in. And I get it. But it just feels like they're leaving a lot on the table. And they left, obviously, a lot on the table with the turnovers that they had in Syracuse territory time after time last week. So, but we'll see if they get that short yardage situation filled out because Walter said in his press conference that the approach will change. He said, quote, hope to have a better game plan going forward. I hope so. I hope so because they need to change something, something on that offensive situational play calling in those instances because it it just didn't work out. Didn't work out last week. On the other side of the ball, when Wisconsin has it, they haven't been overly impressive either. Um, Ches Malusi, Braylon Allen have gotten split of the carries so far. I expect that to be the case on Friday night. And I think they're going to try to lean on that running game because the passing game has not really been there. I think these are two offenses with Purdue and Wisconsin that want to throw the ball a lot, have explosive plays to the pass game, and Purdue hasn't gotten there on that side, and neither has Wisconsin. They haven't had a ton of big plays. Their longest pass play is 45 yards, and they've had a couple of 40-yard pass plays, but nothing huge. So, and from watching them against Georgia Southern in particular, I watched most of that. I just, saw the highlights of Washington State, the extended highlights. So, but it felt like a lot of their stuff was in the short to intermediate routes. Um, Now, whether that's similar to Purdue and the passing attack is just not getting deep, um, or Mordecai doesn't have time to throw, or they're just trying to keep it short. But from what I've seen so far and what I saw particular time after time in that Georgia Southern game was a lot of short stuff, and allowing wide receivers to catch the ball with some space and try to make a play, make one or two guys miss, and get that first down. And it was a lot of third and longs against Georgia Southern. And they weren't very good on third down against the Eagles. Wisconsin was 3 for 11 on third down, and like I said, a lot of third and longs, third and 7, third and 6. So if Purdue can, stuff the rushing attack, keep Malusi and Allen in check, which I think they can, because you're not going to have another threat as much as Garrett Schrader was with Tanner Mordecai. He can move. He scored 2 rushing touchdowns last week. One of them was a QB sneak, and the other he broke off, I think, about 15 to 20 yards. But it was a wide open lane. So I think if if they're able to keep Malusi and Allen in check and make Tanner Mordecai beat you with his arm, it's not like he's been blowing the top off of defenses so far. And I think the best defense that they faced is Washington State's, and that's a good defense. It's not, it's not a top 25. It might be a top 25, but it's not like a top 10 where it's going to shut you down time after time and it makes it super difficult on you for 4 quarters. It's not like an Iowa defense or anything like that. So I think Wisconsin, you're gonna, as long as you can keep the running game in check and don't allow them to get behind you, because they have a couple of guys that can beat you. I think with CJ Williams, the USC transfer, he's obviously probably the most talented receiver that they have. But he only has 4 catches on the year so far. Shamir DK is their leading receiver so far. He made a couple of nice catches against Georgia Southern. Then they have obviously the tight ends that are able to catch the ball, Paulding and Ashcraft. So I think if you can just try to keep everything in front of you, keep them in check, don't allow big plays to happen, like I think Purdue did in the passing game against Syracuse. I thought they did a better job of that than they did, say, against Fresno State and Virginia Tech. There were some of those plays that I think from that second half of Virginia Tech on, there hasn't really been that explosive plays that have gotten beat for that secondary. So I think that there is opportunity to keep down this offense to a certain extent. I don't necessarily think you're going to shut them down for 4 quarters. They're going to get theirs, especially with the running game. I think the running backs are too talented to hold down for the entire 4 quarters. They're going to break off some 15 yards, some 20-yard gains. I mean, Malusi already has nearly a 90-yard game rush for a touchdown. I think he got that week 1. But Allen also has like a 40-yard gain already this year as well. So if you can hold down the offense, keep them in check, I think you'll be in this game and give yourself the opportunity uh, to win. Because Wisconsin, I don't think has separated itself that much from Purdue here so far, and they may be the best team in the Big Ten West. Them or Iowa at this point. I mean, Iowa, I think, is still unbeaten, 3-0, but it's still an offense that looks anemic at times. It's got probably the best defense in the Big Ten, at least in the Big Ten West. It's right up there with the likes of Ohio State and Michigan and maybe Penn State. But this is going to be a game, and a lot of these Big Ten West games are going to be close. They're going to be dogfights. I mean, if you just look at the point spread, I mean, the rule of thumb is you get 3 points for home field advantage. So Vegas thinks that this is about a 9-point game right now. So I think if it was at Wisconsin, it'd be about a 9 to 10 point spread. And that's kind of where I see this game going. I just haven't seen enough of this Purdue offense to make me think they're going to go against the Big Ten defense and put 30 on them. I don't think that's going to happen. We haven't seen that yet. I know they scored over 30 points against Fresno State, but you have to remember one of those touchdowns was a Tyrone Tracy kickoff return. So the offense has not scored more than 30 points in a game yet. And it just hasn't really wowed me and shown me that this is a game that we have clicked and are running the ball with efficiency. We're hitting it big explosive plays. I don't think this is going to be the week. And it may take all season for that you're finding for this offense to click, unfortunately. Because what we've seen so far from this Purdue offense has been fine. I think it's middle of the pack, middle of the country as far as total yardage per game. The defense is, I think, still giving up way too many yards. Obviously, they give up a ton of yards on the ground and then give up a ton of yards through the pass in week 1. So they're pretty near the bottom in some of these statistical categories. But I still expect them to be somewhat competitive in this game. But however, I don't expect them to win it. I think Wisconsin wins this game 33-20. I think they cover the point spread. I think they just come in shy of the over. I think it's 53.5. So I have the under by just a half a point. X factor for Purdue, I think, is got to be the linebackers. I think whether it's Scorton off the edge, OC Brothers, it's got to be slowing down this rushing attack and making Tana Mordecai beat you with his arm. I don't think he'll beat you with his legs, but I think you're gonna have to put a lot on his shoulder if you want to be close in this game. So I know Purdue doesn't want to start off with a loss in Big Ten play. But if you look at the history, if you just look at this matchup, I think Wisconsin's offense maybe just a little bit more established with their offensive line, the running game. They're very balanced. I think they have 102 passes to 107 rushing attempts. And Malusi and Allen are a better tandem, better duo combined, I think, than Maccabee and Tracy. I think Maccabee is on there as a similar level as those guys. I mean, there's a ton of really good backs in the Big Ten. And I think Maccabee, if he's used correctly, if he's given the chance to get out and get in some free space, he just feels like he's been bottled up a lot. He's breaking off a couple of double-digit runs, but nothing too extreme. So I think if Purdue can somewhat establish that, it'll give them a better chance in the passing game. So, but we haven't seen that from Graham Harrell so far. We haven't seen that type of play calling to where he looks like he wants to establish the running game outside of one quarter at Virginia Tech. So that's how I see this game going down. Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of Behind the Rails. Make sure you tune in Friday night to the live recap show. If everything goes well, we might do more. We might turn the preview show into a live thing that you can watch and comment along, or give your questions or disagreements or thoughts on what is going on in all things Purdue football. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you click that notification so you get that notification when we go live on Friday night. It'll be shortly after the game ends. And until then, this has been another edition of Behind the Rails of Purdue football. I've been your host, Brice Vance. I'll see you guys on Friday night.